and welcome to Your Coaching Journey, a podcast for doctors about coaching. Whether you're a coaching doctor, a doctor who is learning to coach, or a doctor who'd like to build coaching into your professional life, then this is the podcast for you. Hello, I'm Tom Dillon, and with me today is my co-host and business partner, Helen Leathers. Good morning, Helen. How are you?
Good morning. I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Good. Long gone are the days that I would trip over your name and get it horribly wrong. I just seem to be able to do it now without any problem. I was recording a podcast the other day where I had to introduce Dr. Ira van der Steenstraten, which was tricky. I stumbled over it several times. We had to re-record the beginning several times because I've got used to your name, but names are tricky.
Yeah, that's coming up soon.
It's so hard to get it right, and then you just once you've got it wrong once, it's very easy to get it wrong 5 times. But we got there in the end. To be fair, Ira is in Australia, and so it was 5 o'clock in the afternoon over there. It was 7 o'clock in the morning here. Could record a podcast. It was a little bit early for me to be firing on all cylinders, so I think I did just to show up and record a podcast.
So, what are we talking about today, Tom?
Today we are talking about an unusual topic. We are talking about the uncoachables.
Oh, the uncoachables. Tell me more.
Well, it sounds a little bit loaded, doesn't it? Uncoachables. It sounds like we've got making a judgment. We have a verdict about someone, who they are, and that idea that they might be uncoachable. And really, this kind of stemmed from the fact someone was asking me whether I would coach Donald Trump. And my kind of response in the moment was, no, I think he's uncoachable. But actually, I have no desire to coach Donald Trump. You know, there's nothing about the man that I feel we could have a good conversation about. You know, there's not ethical, but you know, our values aren't quite aligned, shall we say? So I think
that's fair to say.
Yeah, I don't think I would enjoy a conversation with him. But I don't, having said that, I don't think he is uncoachable. If you were of a similar mind and a similar political persuasion, you know, wherever you want to go with that, I think someone somewhere could coach Donald Trump. I don't think he's uncoachable, but I just wouldn't want that gig, really. But it did lead me to think about that. So in the moment I said, no, I think he's uncoachable, but actually I don't think that's true. I think the right coach, coaching him about what he wanted to be coached about, could probably have a coaching conversation with him. I think there'd be a danger that they would have to be on his side and a bit sycophantic, and there'd be a cozy club of collusion, I think, around what he wanted. And I think if, as a coach, if you weren't with him, then good chance he'd just sack you.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be tricky, but I don't, you know, I think he probably is coachable. But that took me to the place of, okay, well, when we think about someone being uncoachable, what do we actually mean? So that was kind of what I thought it'd be useful to give some thought to. Okay. And is it that they're uncoachable, or is this person coachable right now with me on this topic in this context? So those 4 variables: the timing, the relationship, the subject matter, and the system at play around them.
That's interesting. And that reframing of the situation, of the coaching session, I suppose, that creates that space then for some compassion, doesn't it? Rather than the judgment of, oh, that person's uncoachable, we look at the bigger picture. Because plenty of people who potentially could look uncoachable in the early stages, week 1, perfectly coachable by week 9 with a clear contract and creating that really safe space, that safe container, and perhaps adjusting your approach to them, you know, making it much more appropriate for them.
Yeah, and I think it is going to depend on the relationship, isn't it? If you can build a relationship with someone, then I think there's all sorts of things you can do, but it is going to take some time, I think. So I think when we talk about, or when coaches talk about people being uncoachable, they talk about 4 different things, really. So someone not being willing. So maybe a low motivation to have coaching in the first place. Maybe it's been mandated by their organization that they have to attend coaching. And I've certainly had people that have been sent for coaching. Quite often in organizations, from an HR perspective, it's almost the last resort before they get rid of someone. Like, oh, we'll give them some coaching, see if that works. But it is kind of almost as they're out on the door, they get a bit of coaching. And where's the motivation for the person involved? They probably know the writing's on the wall. They probably know their days are numbered. So are they really going to show up in an open, expansive way to be coached if they know that is the case? And I've certainly had someone who, I think I had 4 sessions out of 6 with him. And at the end of the 4th session, he was welling up and saying, I just don't want this to happen again, because he'd been let go before and knew that his time was coming. So again, where is the motivation to bring about change in yourself if you know the organization is trying to get rid of you?
So it just becomes... Sorry, I was just going to say, because it then becomes something, well, at least we tried, we did this, we made every effort.
Yeah.
But it's not real.
Yeah, and you might get some people who maybe they had a complaint against them for bullying or being aggressive or something. So I've given some coaching to try and address that. But actually their way of being, if they're quite bullish and quite assertive, their way of being probably gets rewarded by the organisation. So they've probably got to where they've got by being that way, and then someone has complained and they've been told, yeah, you can't be like that. But actually the organisation is still rewarding them for being like that. So,
so then it becomes more about placating the person who's made the complaint and less about helping that person that the complaint's been made about to change.
Yes, so being able to say to the person who made the complaint, we put things in place. They might be told, well, they're getting a bit of coaching around this. But I've certainly had situations where the person doing, let's say they've been aggressive in their approach towards other people, they've been complained about, and then they've been given a coach who's actually been on their side and almost supported the behaviour that I've been demonstrating. So totally unhelpful, but that's organisations for you. There's a system at play. So maybe people are going to be unwilling. Maybe they're not ready. So maybe they've not got to that place of being willing to change. They might want a magic wand. Might want you to be some sort of magician that's going to change things for them. And they might not be willing to engage with the process of change. So, the whole idea of that change curve where people, perhaps some change is happening around them, it's being done to them, and they have that bit of a shock and then maybe some denial. If we find them in the denial stage or the anger stage, if we find them there, probably not going to be coachable. We might help them to come through one of those stages. We might help them to realize this is happening. or, you might be angry about it, but it's still happening. We might be able to help them through that process, but they probably need to come through there in order to be coachable. So I think that's another one.
Yeah, and then that brings to mind many of my target audience, if you like, my client base, who might want to make a change in their life or change their world in some way, and they know what they want, but they're not ready because they aren't resourced sufficiently. So they're exhausted from all of the other things that they do in their lives, and so we won't perhaps start with the plan they have, the goal they have, but we might have to look at something else. We might have to look at how they get to the point of not being exhausted so they can address the real change they want to make.
Yeah, so it's almost some pre-coaching coaching.
Yeah.
Still
coaching. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so we've got the not willing, the not ready. I think the next one is not able. So they might, then this is sort of touches on what you're talking about, so limited capacity. And that may be due to a crisis. There's something immediate happening that they're just not ready to be coached. They need things to settle down a bit. Or maybe some mental health concerns that they're just, coaching isn't the appropriate intervention for them at that point. They need to see someone, a specialist. And that's not to say, if someone has had some mental health issues in the past, they may be in counselling or therapy. That's not to say coaching can't sit alongside that, but we just need to be careful and involve other people and just make sure everyone's happy with what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've certainly worked with clients alongside their therapist, obviously not literally alongside their therapist, but they're having therapy at the same time as having coaching, and they found it really beneficial.
Yeah. So there's that idea that someone might not be able, but actually from our perspective as a coach, it might be that we feel coaching is not appropriate. So back to that idea that maybe we think, okay, this isn't something that I can help you with. You might need to see a therapist about this, or you might need to talk to HR about this because this is not right. There are things going on here that maybe are illegal or just unethical. Maybe they're being bullied, something like that. And there's not a lot we can do as a coach in terms of someone being bullied. So it may be that they need to take that to HR and follow it through a process. Or they might need to talk to a lawyer if there's stuff going on, again, that has legal ramifications. Yeah. That might be where they would be best served to talk to someone else.
Yeah, and I've had a client where they've needed to speak to their GP because they realised through initial conversations with me that there was something else going on with them around hormone issues, and that was causing them to feel things that, unless that initial medical condition is addressed, it's hard to look at where they want to go in a really clear way. The medical condition muddies the waters for them, so they went away and got some further help.
So we've got the not willing, not ready, not able, not appropriate, and maybe not a fit. So that's just that they're coachable, but we're not the right coach. You have a discovery call, I have a chemistry session, but we will always have coaching conversations with coachees before they start to make sure that, we are going to be able to have good conversations together, and our style of coaching matches with what they're looking for. So I think that's important, and I wouldn't really take on a coachee without having that conversation with them before we start.
Absolutely not, no. I always want to check in and make sure that we are a good fit.
Yeah. So those are kind of my 5 ideas really around where someone might seem to be uncoachable, but just in the moment, it's not really the right time.
Yeah. And I think, can we add something to that? Can we add not safe? Not safe.
Not safe.
Yeah, for either party, whether there's some aggression, some boundary testing, or maybe some conflict of interest or ethical breaches.
Yeah, certainly. In terms of ethical concerns, then that's definitely something we're going to need to pay attention to. Boundary testing. Say more about boundary testing, Helen.
So obviously we have our coaching doctors, and if someone was approaching one of them to have some coaching, they might think, oh, well, this is a good opportunity to speak about, I don't know, my bunions or something more. And so obviously our doctors are told about contracting and how to make it very clear that we're coaching in this space and coaching alone. But someone might initially go along with that and then try to sneak in for some medical advice. Yeah. Just an idea.
Yeah, and very difficult for a doctor who perhaps has some knowledge of that area of medicine to not give in and go, oh yeah, well, what I think is this. That's a tough one, isn't it?
It is tough because our doctors are so lovely. They want to help people. They're highly trained, good at what they do. But that's testing the boundary, and it may well be that you have to say, we've talked about this, we've contracted for this. If you're going to continue doing this, we can't work together.
Yeah. I did have someone once on a leadership program who we'd had a conversation before the coaching, and then he arrived in the coaching and he just sat there and said, go on then. Go on then what? And he said, tell me what you know. And I said, that's not how this works. I'm here to support you in your leadership. And tell me about your leadership. And he said, well, I tell people what to do and they go away and do it. I said, and how's that working out for you? And he said, yeah, it seems to work all right. So, it's not coaching. I don't think he had any interest in being coached. I think he just was showing up with some ego to say, I know everything about leadership. if you think you can teach me something, off you go. But of course, that's not what coaching is. But it was interesting.
Yeah.
I only had one session with him. We didn't. I didn't. We didn't follow that up.
I'm not surprised.
So now I don't think he was uncoachable. I think at that time he probably came. Maybe he hadn't been. No, he'd definitely been told what coaching was. But maybe that, as you say, there's that bit of boundary testing. Of, okay, let me see whether this guy's any good. And so maybe testing me as a coach. And I think, again, it would be very easy to get sucked into when someone challenges you to tell me what you know. You might be driven to try to prove yourself and let them know what you know. But I resisted and I wasn't going to go there. But so maybe not uncoachable, but the conditions were wrong for the coaching in that situation.
So let's talk a bit about then what helps when someone presents in, let's put uncoachable in inverted commas, in an uncoachable way.
Yeah, and I think looking through those lenses that we've explored, so not willing, not ready, not able, not appropriate, not a fit, and maybe not safe. I think we just need to explore it with some curiosity. So rather than sitting in judgment and go, well, this is never going to work, they're uncoachable. Actually, I think our job is to explore it and to come with compassion and curiosity and actually explore with them what's going on for them.
And maybe in that exploration, a door will open, the coachability will appear. Because for us as coaches, it's about meeting people where they are, isn't it? Not where they want to be, not where we want them to be, but where they are.
Yeah, and maybe not where the organisation thinks they are.
Yes.
And I had one guy once who was sent for some coaching. He'd been to an assessment centre and been told he needed to work on his presence in board meetings, his body language, and his relationships with his peers. All good. Had a chemistry session. He said, yeah, that's all good. Happy with that. Turned up for the coaching. And he said, I said, well, where would you like to start? He said, I don't get on with my boss. Okay, well, no one's mentioned this. You haven't mentioned this. Why are we suddenly doing this? But I met him where he was. And we explored him not getting on with his boss. And we did some work around that. I did some Gestalt work with him. And he ended up, after about 20 minutes, saying, it's me, isn't it? And he just recognized that he was being a bit obstructive and a bit difficult. And let go of that. And that changed things for him. Now, having let go of all of that, he was then just showing up in a more humble way, just ready for some coaching. But we needed to get past the relationship with his boss just to open him up for doing some coaching. But that's me meeting where he was. I wasn't going to go, no, we can't talk about your boss because that's not what we've contracted for. We need to get that conversation out of the way before we could carry on with the coaching.
Yeah, because we're coaching in a holistic way, aren't we? And we don't know what's going to be getting in the way, what's going to be influencing, what's going to be changing and filtering our perspective. So allowing them to talk about whatever they need to talk about and then exploring how that sits with the topic in mind. Really important.
Maybe a lack of self-awareness could be, for some people, a barrier to successful coaching. So if someone is very resistant to doing any sort of self-reflection, having that mirror held up to themselves, then I think they can get into that defensive place, a bit of denial, and maybe the wrong context. So if someone is being sent for coaching because the organisation wants them to be how the organisation wants them to be, when actually they're not that person anyway. So that's tricky. Yeah. So if someone is quite introverted and the organisation is saying, well, you need to speak up in board meetings, you need to be more assertive, and they have no real desire to be. Yeah. I think it's possible to coach people to be more assertive, but if they really don't want to be in that space, they're not going to push themselves to be different. And why should they be? So I think for us, much of our coaching is around helping someone to be more themselves and to make that work within the role they're in, or to find another role where that way of being works for them.
So it sounds like we've come to a conclusion that everyone is, in fact, coachable.
Yeah, I think we need to make sure that we meet the coachee where they are, that the context is right, that the agenda is right, that our approach is right for them.
So we've mentioned the importance of having those initial conversations, discovery call, chemistry session, whatever you'd like to call it. We've talked a little bit about boundaries, and by default, that means, contracting, contract well, contract tightly for what it is you're offering, explain what it is you're offering, because if what you're offering isn't right, then it's good to get that sorted at the outset and maybe for them to find a different coach. And it allows you to be really clear on your boundaries.
Wonderful. I think I'll do today.
It sounds like a good place to pause.
So our verdict is no one is uncoachable, but the circumstances might not be right.
Yeah, it's not a permanent label, perhaps. A good phrase to use.
Yeah, it does sound a bit mean, doesn't it? Well, you're uncoachable.
Yeah, very judgy.
I just go to the Untouchables. Is it the Untouchables? The Elliot Ness, FBI, Al Capone movie.
Yeah.
Looking at me blankly like you have no idea.
I have no idea. I have heard of it. I've not watched it.
There's a lovely scene at a railway station where there's a gunfight and there's a pram with a baby in it that's slowly going down the stairs. It's all in slow motion.
That sounds
Someone's trying to grab hold of the pram whilst shooting someone else. Oh, it's so tense.
Okay, and inappropriate.
What a good place to finish our podcast.
Yeah.
Excellent. Run away and watch The Untouchables.
Okay, fabulous. I'm going to watch the film. Maybe
you're not. I don't know why you say these things.
Of course I am.
It's like war movies and sports movies. You're just not going to watch them.
And westerns. Not interested. On another note, what are we talking about next time?
Next time on the podcast, we will be talking about boundaries, which it's a topic we visited very early on in our podcasting. And we touched upon it more recently with Sarah Coopey in her interview. But I think it's worth another airing. I think we could have a good conversation to go a little bit deeper into an exploration of boundaries.
Excellent. It's one of my favourite topics.
Good.
So I look forward to that.
Thank you.
For now, do subscribe, do tell your friends about the podcast and give us a 5-star review on the platform of your choice. That would be fantastic. Thank you so much, and we will be back soon. Bye for now.
Bye-bye for now.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.